Hello everyone, it's History Behind the Warrior, and of course, welcome back to yet another Mortal Kombat video. Now, seeing as we've just come off of last week's stress test, I do hope you had a great time with that, by the way. Today, I wanted to touch on something that did pop up in the middle of that stress test. A reoccurring name that continues to ripple through time, regardless of whatever era that may be. The Dragon King, Onaga. The Dragon King has been an infamous figure throughout the series, having made his debut and huge impact all the way back since Deception. Unlike many characters introduced during that time period, Onaga held this sort of presence and awe that we hadn't quite seen before. In many ways, Onaga could be seen as Shao's successor. And yes, I do realize how ironic it is to say that, but Shao basically walked so Onaga could run, as Shao himself really helped establish the realms through his wondrous fury and conquest. So when it fell into the hands of another, someone he feared to battle, we as the audience knew that we had something special here. And then it was all horribly mishandled, as amazing as the conquest mode of Deception is. Because it did some incredible world building that literally no other Mortal Kombat game has replicated till this very day. The ending of Deception is pretty unanimously looked down upon, as it is sadly quite rushed, with the climax of the Dragon King simply being relegated to that of an arcade ladder no less. So the ending is wrapped up in 2 art panels and a bit of exposition. So yeah, not great. But he'd come back in the sequel, right? Because Shao was defeated in 2, and came back with an iron fist in Mortal Kombat 3. Well, the Dragon King would return, but not set up in the way he was originally conceived. In the early drafts of Armageddon, Onaga was more or less set up to become the One Being, a literal cosmic level threat that rivaled the Elder Gods, and was effectively written to be the final big bad of the series. However, for whatever reason, whether that be creative or financial, as Midway would file for bankruptcy, this entire thread regarding the One Being would be discarded for a tale of 2 brothers. So Onaga himself would be sidelined, later perishing to the hands of Shao himself. Since then, the Dragon King has become but an afterthought in many fans' minds, with a majority of them these days only really being exposed to the character through content creators like myself, people in the fandom, or very brief glimpses of him through arcade ladder endings. Onaga was sadly never present in the reboot trilogy, and at best was relegated to a cameo role in the now non-canon MKX comics, and being name-dropped in Mortal Kombat 11.
You have Onaga's fire.
I'm not related to the Dragon King.
Mortals are always so self-assured.
But since then, fans have been hungering and yearning for his return. But why is that so the case? Why is the Dragon King still held up in such high regard till this very day? Well, that's quite easy to explain. And it's because he's not Shao. Now, no, I don't hate Shao. He's one of my personal favorite characters in the series. But since 3 onwards, the villains that followed kind of became an afterthought. Shinnok was cool, but unfortunately was always treated as a footnote following Shao's defeat. They were shoes that were nigh impossible for him to fill in, and the Deadly Alliance, as incredible as they were, really delivering some jaw-dropping moments, kinda lacked the prowess and gravitas that came with the role of a boss. But Onaga embodied all of the values of the previous villains in a new well-rounded package. Having the physical intimidation of Shao Kahn, the cunning mind of Shang Tsung, the cutthroat ambition of Shinnok, and hell, even a better version of necromancy than Quan Chi. To boot, he was a literal dragon. You know, the logo icon of the series. That is why Onaga is seen as something special. But in this new reboot, this new timeline, could someone like Onaga really exist here, with someone as powerful as Fire God Liu Kang watching over the realms? Well, yeah. In fact, the chances couldn't be higher as of right now. You see, despite Liu Kang's vision, having sculpted this world from the ground up, he doesn't exactly have complete control or domain of people's own choices. Their decisions on where their path takes them is entirely up to them. In fact, allow me to reference the very first trailer.
In my new era, the choice is yours. Whether to live in quiet serenity or bloody strife.
A perfect example of this is the recently restored Bi-Han, back in his former glory as Sub-Zero. And it's made very clear through some verbal intros that despite starting off as a royal guard to the god, he does in fact plan on betraying him, presumably in the name of the Lin Kuei. So despite the overwhelming power of Liu Kang, he cannot control every aspect of someone's character, nor the choices they do make, as ultimately it is them that crafts their own fate. So naturally, that raises the question of how exactly does Onaga come into the fold here? And does he have a place in this new timeline and era? Well, yeah, I think there's a considerable amount of evidence that not only foreshadows his return, but really works off the base lore in a new and a very interesting manner. Now, one thing I gotta establish and point out is this new world. A new vision, as whilst the creative button has been reset, it gives us all a fresh opportunity to approach similar ideas in a new and interesting manner. And one of those big changes is actually Edenia itself. Historically, when we've ever been introduced to this realm, it has always already been merged with Outworld, enslaved by the quenchless ambition of Emperor Shao. But here, this isn't at all the case. In fact, it couldn't be more different, as the realm itself looks to be prospering in its wondrous, beautiful prime. Thus, I believe this already does softly imply that the Shao of all is out of the picture here. Whether dead or alive, that is left to be seen. But I am quite confident in saying that at the very least, he isn't in charge here, with the role of Emperor presumably falling into the hands of Onaga. But what do I have to back up this rather bold statement? What could I point out to validate this point? Well, this actually takes us to Goro here. The infamous prince of the Shokan is very loosely related to the Dragon King, as the Shokan line itself is a mixture of both mortal and dragon. Don't rule 34 that. But the similarities don't end there, as the kingdom of the Shokan does lie in Outworld itself. But what other ties do the Shokan have to Onaga outside of their heritage? Well, this takes us to a very minor but interesting design detail that I haven't seen many point out here. As when we look at Goro and his attire overall, his chest piece is in fact branded with the face of Onaga. And traditionally, when it comes to Shokan armor, they show off their own crest, a symbol that is very prominent in their character designs. But here, with this new look and design, it looks like the Shokan crest is gone, and instead replaced with one that shows their ties to Onaga. But what else could this imply, or even really mean? Well, if Goro, of all people, is one to show symbolism and respect to that of the Dragon King, then I think it's pretty damn safe to say that the rest of the Shokan are more than likely to follow suit. And prior to Shao Kahn's reign, in that of the original canon, we do know that Onaga would travel across Outworld and unite their kingdoms under one banner. So I think the same thing is happening here, with the Shokan possibly being one of many that is under his thumb. But this now takes us to the stress test, bringing us yet another possibility into this equation, that Onaga himself derives from another timeline, having conquered it.
Does Onaga exist in your timeline? Exist in it? He rules it.
I must say, this idea is pretty out there, but is most certainly possible. With the end of Mortal Kombat 11 opening up the multiverse, and Snowblind really capitalizing on that concept, it gives you an idea of the endless possibilities that now sit in the present. And with the appearance of Shang Tsung, it raises the question of, did Onaga gain the hourglass in one of the many different timelines? Well, yeah, it's always possible. One of the inherent flaws and somewhat double-edged sword when it comes to opening up multiple timelines and multiverse theory. It's a double-edged sword on what is and what isn't possible, because anything can happen, as possibility and probability essentially fluctuate on the writer's whim and call. Now, hypothetically, if the Shang Tsung we see here is indeed the same one from Aftermath, then the possibility of Onaga goes up astronomically here, as it does look to play into that equation. But there's also actually the possibility that the Dragon King himself may grow an interest in Shang's hourglass. Thus, I could actually see him stealing Shang to then utilize it on Liu. Right now, nothing about Onaga is guaranteed, but it's very evident that the seeds have been sown for his inevitable return. The real question right now is, how will it all unfold? Do you think his reign never ended, and that they are purposely not showing Outworlders because of it? Please do comment down below, as there's just so many interesting possibilities that sit on the table right now. I'd love to hear what you all have to say. But for now, everyone, that has been it for me. So as always, stay strong, stay well, and keep on fighting. Take care, everyone. I'll catch you all soon.